Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Receptional's SEO Masterclass. Today, we're going to be asking who's performing best on Google and looking at the sportsbook market. It's fantastic to have so many of you here online from some brilliant brands, and we're really excited about the research that we put together and look forward to sharing that with you over the next half an hour or so. I'm joined by my colleagues, Claire and Jack, who you can see in front of you. We'll introduce ourselves properly in a second, but I think while we're just waiting for people to log in, it's worth a couple of points. First of all is that we're more than happy to share the slides after today's event, so we can send around a link afterwards, so don't feel obliged to take notes, but you may want to do so and feel welcome, but you will get the slides, of course. The second thing is it's great to have people kind of in the room, so to speak, with us. And one of the great things about us being here face to face is that you get the chance to ask questions. Now, we're presenting our research for the first time today. We haven't presented it before, so if stuff doesn't come across clearly or it doesn't seem to quite make sense, then please do ask questions. Challenge us on the findings that we're presenting, because as I say, this is new material. So at the end, we'll have time for questions, and please do kind of chip in with your thoughts. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen there's a questions box, and just pop your questions in there, and we will do our best to answer them when we get to the end. But and one more point. I think we do put together quite a lot of primary research for this market in particular. What we will do after the event is send around a questionnaire just to get your thoughts on the material today. I know Jack and Claire put in a huge amount of time to preparing the material, and I think we just want to get your feedback to make sure that we're presenting information that's useful to you. So what I'll now do is share my screen, and we will get started. So hopefully you can see that in front of you. And so I should start by introducing myself. So I'm Justin DeVille. I'm Managing Director here at Receptional. As we're on a footballing theme, I think I wanted to tell you three things about myself, and we'll start with the fact that I'm from Manchester, as you can see, from a certain generation. I left Manchester, came down to live in London, and I spent a decade or more working as a professional actor. So some film and theatre and TV, which was fantastic fun. I really enjoyed that. And increasingly, though, I started to get interested in the digital world. And I really liked the way that digital was changing the way that we live our lives, and so I started to get interested in digital and digital marketing in particular, and hence why I'm here talking to you today, and why I run Receptional, which is a 40-strong digital agency. You can see some of the facts and figures about us there, and us kind of turning up to win awards in our penguin suits over the past couple of years. I won't dwell too much on us as an agency because we want to get on with the material, but as you can see, we've got some specialism in the gaming sector, and these are few, though not all, of the brands that we work with at the moment. Excellent. So that's a little bit about us. I think one of the reasons that I enjoy working in this sector is because it is so competitive and there's so much going on, and probably the most competitive search sector that anyone can work in. And I love the challenge. I love working with challenger brands who are trying to disrupt the way that the world works. And I think over the past 18 months or so, we have seen the world changing at a fairly rapid pace. And I think because of all that change, I think what really matters for me as a marketer is that we understand our audience better than we ever have done before, because that's how we'll get a competitive advantage over the people that we're competing against. And I think understanding our customers and trying to place ourselves in the shoes of our customers and acknowledging that we're not the target market is part of the humility of being a good marketer. And that's why at Receptional, we conduct our own primary research into the way that people are behaving in the gaming sector. And so last year we surveyed 400 potential gamblers, people who had placed a bet in the last 6 months. So we're interested in the market to try and understand, how they behave online and what their preferences are when they're choosing an operator to work with. And I think as marketers, we often get obsessed by kind of ourselves and the difference that we can make. And I think by understanding our customers, we take ourselves out of the equation. Because I think what we talk about a lot, particularly in this sector, is the offer. And that might be kind of free bets or free spins or deals and deadlines and all those kind of things, which I think can get a reaction from an audience. But are they the things that the audience cares about? Well, in the research that we did last year, then I think some of the findings were surprising. And what we found out was that the offer, much as we thought it was important, wasn't the most important thing to the people that we surveyed. And so what I wanted to run through now is the findings of our survey very quickly, just to say, what are the things that our audience tell us are important, which maybe we as marketers have missed. So in reverse order, what factors, we asked, influence your decision to deposit with a particular operator? Well, in third place, word of mouth or recommendation. And it may be surprising that in a digital world, word of mouth is still kind of one of the key factors, but I think as marketers, we can influence that, making sure our brand is present and front of mind when people are talking about it. Second on our list was the quality of the online customer service experience. And that really shouldn't be a surprise, though I think it made us pause and think, because it's common across lots of other sectors. Though I think if you look at kind of gaming brands generally online, there isn't that emphasis upon customer service and the experience that perhaps there is in other sectors. And finally, a drum roll, please. The most important factor that our audience told us influenced their decision to deposit was the memorability of the brand. So how memorable your brand is was the most important factor. And of course, there's two things that go into that. First of all, it's the quality of the creative and the messaging, but it's also, are you present? Do you give yourself the opportunity to be memorable? And that's really what we're going to be looking at for the next 20 minutes or so. Because for your brand to be memorable, it has to be present. That's fundamental. And so it's not just about being present on desktop, it's also about mobile. It's not about being on Facebook, it's also about being on Google. And I think Google is particularly important. And that's why we're looking at Google in the presentation today. We asked the second important question. We asked how much time do potential punters spend researching before their bet? And the short answer is up to about 30 minutes on average. So about half an hour of research before placing that bet. And so that's why when we've done our survey, our research today, what we've looked at is that customer journey before someone places a bet. And Jack is going to talk through the likely customer journey that we predict someone will take before they place that bet, and which brands are therefore present on Google. Because we think there's a fantastic opportunity that in some cases being missed to get your brand in front of your potential audience before they place that bet. And so finally, in my summing up, 90% of success is showing up is the old line. If we follow our footballing theme, then we'll know that that's a Scottish saying, many years standing. But I think as marketers, success to us, particularly on Google, is about making sure that you're present when people are searching, not for your brand, that's people who know you already, but for those non-brand keywords when people are thinking about placing a bet and yet haven't yet decided to do so. And so that's what we're looking at for the next 20 minutes or so. So what I'm going to do now is pass across to Jack, who's going to take over the presenting from me. And so Jack has spent the last few months, he's reviewed several thousand brands to see how they're performing on Google. He has had his head buried deep in spreadsheets. Let me just make sure I've got that handed across properly. He's had his head buried deep in spreadsheets, probably more spreadsheets than should be allowed by law. And he has come up with some fantastic insights into who's performing best on Google. So Jack, I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Just making sure everyone can see my screen correctly. Is that?
We can indeed.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jack, and I'm an outreach executive here at Receptional. A little bit about me to get us started. Like Justin, I support a team in red, but unfortunately for me, that team is Arsenal, so we'll skip past that very quickly. My background is in marketing and events. I previously spent 3.5 years with DHL working on their physical and digital shows, all from an operational perspective, which means that I've been in the background keeping everything working like clockwork most of the time. So to be let out in front of everyone is exciting for me. I've been working for Receptional now for around 8 months, and in that short time, I've learned lots about link building and SEO, especially within the sportsbook sector. And the great thing about pulling all of this together is that I get to see, which operators are outperforming the rest and where they're focusing their SEO strategies. So what we've done is benchmarked over 2,000 websites across 2 huge sectors in the sportsbook market. And this is to find out who we believe is getting the most traffic from non-branded keywords, like Justin said, that are all relevant to their specific niches. But what we also want to know is who's gaining traffic in the right areas and who's diversifying in their niche to not only obtain as much traffic as possible, but also to be as memorable as possible. So all this begs the question of why would you want to listen to all of this data we've found? Well, there's estimated to be 6.2 million searches per month for the keywords that we've identified. And again, they're all non-branded. And if you look at the average cost per click between the markets, then I've seen that you would have to spend an estimated £75 million a year per market to buy the amount of traffic available to you as an operator. So you'd really be crazy not to look into the organic search and see how your brand could reach more people. So what we're going to do today is look into 2 of the biggest sectors within online sportsbook, and that is, of course, football betting and horse racing betting. And we've done this because at Receptional, we're lucky to have worked within these sectors for various sportsbook clients, and it's a market that we know well. And as a bonus today, in keeping with everything that's going on, we'll also be looking at some of the best performers when it comes to Euro 2020 specific keywords and who has been gaining the most organic search traffic at each stage of the competition. Before we get into the important bits, I just want to explain what this funnel means to the sportsbook market, as I'm going to be referencing it throughout the presentation. This funnel is based around a potential customer's journey from initial research to placing a bet. And to go back to Justin's point about being memorable, this funnel helps you create an SEO strategy where you should show up at every stage of the customer's journey. So let's look at each stage of the funnel and its relevance. Within each section is some keywords. So at the top is football today, football tips is in the middle of the funnel, and football betting at the bottom. And at the top, what you would expect there is there to be a very broad amount of searches. So football today, for example, is estimated to have 2.4 million searches per month. But why is it relevant to Sportsbook? Well, targeting these keywords is more for brand awareness and trust. And we wouldn't expect there to be many people here ready to commit to spending money or placing a bet, but we presume that a potential customer would be starting their journey here. The middle of the funnel is where a customer starts to get more serious about spending their money. And they're starting to look for the kinds of operators who offer tips and detailed information around the games they want to bet on. And at the bottom of the funnel is a vital area to show up in as an operator. This is the area where customers are ready to spend their money. They've done their research, they've found the ways they can bet online, and they're ready to go for it. This is where the most opportunity is for operators, hence the giant pound sign you can see on the screen. So let's get into the data now and take a look at horse racing betting. But before I tell you which operators are performing best in the horse racing market, just take a moment to decide which of the operators you think are going to be at the top and have the most market share. Write it down, do whatever you need to, but just take a moment to do that.
Cool. I'll just launch that for you, Jack.
Oh, thank you.
Hopefully everyone can see that on the screens in front of them. I think it's an interesting question, isn't it? And I certainly got it wrong when I was asked to guess. So it'd be good to see what everyone else says. So if you can fill out those, I'll get some responses back.
Yeah, and we'll reveal all of the winning operator at the end of this section.
Okay, I'll just give it a couple more seconds. At the moment, it's kind of it's split. It's a dead heat. Okay. So if anyone else wants to chip in, we will close that and we'll launch. So on on the webinar today, half the people reckon it's going to be Bet365, and half the people reckon it's going to be Odds Checker. And
Okay.
so, which is good to know, because those would have been my top two guesses as well.
Yeah.
And I think we can say, Jack, that they're both wrong, right?
Yeah, we'll definitely come on to that and reveal all at the end of the section. But yeah, most people are wrong. So
Excellent.
right,
So thank you for contributing, but there's something to learn.
let's take a look at this then. So let's look at the very top of the funnel and the start of the customer journey. Horse racing today is searched around 2.4 million times a month, and it's a very broad search term. And again, we're not expecting many people to be paying customers here, but what we're saying is that a customer looking to place a bet would start their journey here. So attempting to show up here is important, even though it's extremely difficult. It's not uncommon, obviously, to find large publications here, as they are the most trusted sources of information. As we move into the middle of the customer journey, we are focused on the search term horse racing tips. Now, it's a keyword that shows some buying intent, but also shows that the customer is still looking for information too. And it's no surprise that we find some informational sites here in the likes of Racing Post and My Racing, but we also find Paddy Power here too, with a strong percentage of the market share, which just shows that they are doing, the right things in turning up in the middle of the customer journey. But could they be doing more and show up in the top of the customer journey? It's something to maybe look at. And finally, at the end of the customer journey, we've looked at horse racing betting. This keyword shows an intent to bet on the horse racing and is where you want to be turning up if you want to convert people into paying customers. The interesting thing here is that we find completely different sites gaining the biggest market share of traffic, with Grosvenor Casinos obtaining the most alongside Virgin Bet and a blog or affiliate site. Again, showing that really no operators are showing up throughout the whole customer journey and being memorable. So there's lots of information on that slide, so I'll leave it there just for a couple of seconds so you can kind of take another look and take it all in. Cool. So what does this mean overall? Well, it's no surprise that we find big publications at the top of this list, because their market share is in a set of keywords that are searched for millions of times instead of opposed to thousands of times. So this table gives us a good idea of the top performing websites, but what we're really here for is top performing operators. And as you can see, Paddy Power dominate this list with a combined estimated total of 1.6% of the market share. This is over double what the next competitor has. And Coral make a surprise entry in third as well, showing that they must be diversifying and ranking in lots of different, ranking for lots of different keywords within the horse racing niche. But really what the percentages show is that there is still so much opportunity within the horse racing betting niche. You as an operator can work on obtaining more of a market share with a proper SEO strategy that helps you become more noticeable at every stage of the customer journey. And I think that just touches on Justin's point at the start. So lots of information to take in there. And as Justin mentioned at the start, if there's anything from the last section that you'd like to talk to us about, then please feel free to leave some questions in the chat box that's available to you today. But alternatively, if there's a question that you'd like us to answer away from the webinar, then we're more than happy to do so. So well done if you guessed correctly. Like Justin said, neither of us guessed correctly. And thought that Paddy Power were going to be at the top of the operators list. So well done if you got that right. I want you to now have a think about football betting and do the same kind of thing. I don't think we've got a poll for this, but kind of write down who you think are going to be the best performers here. I'll give you some time to think about the operators that you think are going to be performing well, and then we'll move on. So just a couple of seconds here. Right, so let's apply this same format to the football betting niche. So when you look at the top of the funnel, we've decided to look at the search term football today, which obviously mirrors the horse racing today that we did earlier. This is a term that is broadly searched for and again would be at the start of a potential customer's journey. However, this search term is dominated by the likes of BBC and Sky Sports, which is totally understandable because again, people will trust these sites for this kind of information more, you would say, than they will a sports betting operator. The interesting part for operators is when we come down the funnel into football tips. This search term shows that the customer has done their initial research and now they're looking in more detail, specifically for tips about betting on football matches that are either on today or coming up soon. And as you can see, that this section of the funnel is dominated by sports betting operators, unlike it was for horse racing, with Paddy Power coming up on top with 11% of the 330,000 searches available to them. And then when you come down to the bottom of the funnel, this is where you get to see the companies that are targeting keywords in their SEO strategy that has great buying intent. But now what we see is a set of companies in the top 3 with free super tips coming out on top. And there's no operators down the bottom there. It's all affiliates or blogs. So, complete opposite to the horse racing. These sites have obviously got a very different SEO strategy, but it's obviously working for them because they're carving out a good amount of traffic from keywords that show intent on betting. So it's quite interesting to see that the 3 information style sites have outranked the bigger operators here. And it shows just how competitive this market is, and also that there is some opportunity being missed there for the operators. So again, there's lots of information on that slide. I'll give you just a couple of seconds to look over that again, and we can move on. Cool. So again, what does this mean overall? A very similar picture to the horse racing. But again, we're not here to see which publications are doing best. We're here to see which top performing operators are here. So we come on to this slide. I, for one, when I was pulling all of the information, wasn't expecting to see William Hill at the top. So 1.04% of the market is being won by William Hill. And yet they only featured once on our keyword top 3. So what does this show? Well, to me, it shows that William Hill are not putting all of their eggs in one basket. It shows that they're targeting a wide variety of keywords within their SEO strategy and picking up a lot of organic traffic from doing so, which again comes back to our point about being memorable from earlier. Ladbrokes didn't feature in our last slide either, and yet come out in 2nd place. Again, they must be diversifying and trying to do what we've been talking about as the main aspect of the webinar. They're trying to capture customers throughout their customer journey. And Paddy Power coming in 3rd is no surprise to me, as they featured on the previous list. It would be criminal, really, as an agency that specialises in sports marketing, not to do some research into the Euro 2020s. And so, as some bonus content, we for this webinar, we decided to pull some ranking data throughout each stage of the competition up until the end of last week, and let you know who's doing well and gaining the most organic traffic from non-branded keywords related to the tournament. So what we can see from our research on the 15th of June is that Sporting Life had been doing a lot of pre-event build-up content, which meant they were picking up a lot of the early Euros traffic. It's always good when the 3rd one comes in 3rd and the 2nd doesn't. As you move into the 21st of June, you can see that the data from Betfair and Paddy Power, they had decided to up their SEO work of the Euros and started taking a good amount of organic traffic. Betfair with 18% and Paddy Power with 15%. As you move into the 23rd of June, you can see that Betfair and Paddy Power had further tightened their grip on the top spots, with Betfred making a leap above Ladbrokes, who actually fell out of the top 5 2 days after being in a solid position. So their SEO work must have dropped off. The 28th of June saw Betfair and Paddy Power split the market share between them, with Betfred losing out on some of the market share to Paddy Power. But again, you can see that they must have had a consistent SEO strategy for the Euros to make sure that they were part of the customer's journey when betting on the games. And finally, we finished last week. We saw that Betfair had taken a majority share of the market, with William Hill jumping up into third and getting themselves some of the traffic late on. So lots of information, but what we can take from all of this is that picking a consistent strategy will undoubtedly have a positive effect on your organic reach, especially through such a major event like the Euros. The likes of Ladbrokes and Oddschecker started well, but they look to have only dipped their toes into this market. If they had been more consistent, then you only have to look at Paddy Power and Betfair to see what kind of a market share they could have achieved throughout the tournament. So lots of information there on specific events. I didn't want to do this webinar and then not give you something to take away from this. So we've got 3 key takeaways that we want you to go away with. Memorability. So as previously mentioned, if you want to build a loyal base of customers that know, like, and trust you as a brand, then you need to try to show up in every part of the customer journey. People will come back for more and recommend you to their friends once they trust your brand. The next thing was opportunities. So both markets are extremely difficult to rank for consistently. However, if you find the opportunities in the market, then you're one step closer to getting your brand in front of people. This is something that we specialize in at Receptional, so if you ever want to speak to us about these opportunities, then feel free to contact us. And lastly, identify your strategy. Once you've found your opportunities, it's time to create an SEO strategy that is going to make sure you push your brand in front of as many people as possible. And also make sure that you capture your audience throughout the whole of the betting journey, from research right up until they're ready to make a bet. So those are the takeaways, but what you'll want to know now is the techniques so that you can put, the techniques that you can put into practice to raise your brand's awareness and obtain more leads. Well, luckily, I'm now passing over to Claire, who is head of outreach at Receptional, and she will be able to tell you more. So if I do this.
Perfect, thank you, Jack. Hopefully you'll be able to see my screen in a second.
I can.
You got that? Perfect. So as Jack said, I'm Claire and I am the head of outreach here at Receptional. I joined the business just over 2 years ago as an outreach executive on our sports and gaming team. Prior to working at Receptional, I finished my degree in marketing and I love dogs, so I decided to set up a dog walking business. However, I soon realised that I prefer working inside with people instead of animals. So that's when I started my career in marketing. At Receptional, I've been predominantly working in the sports and gaming industry, and I've learned a lot about link building and outreach in this sector, having built thousands of links myself. But now that Jack's run you through the overall winners in the sportsbook market, I'm going to run you through the tricks of the trade to improve your SEO and compete against these top players. When it comes to SEO, there are 3 main areas that we focus on in order to be successful. So we've got search optimization, links from high authority domains, and content quality and depth. When we first start working with a SEO client, the first thing we do is carry out an SEO audit, particularly if they're ranking really low in the search results, as this is usually down to the optimization of the website. And then once we've improved the site, we usually see a big jump in the rankings, which places them somewhere around the top 30, where all the competitive brands will be sitting. For today, we're going to assume that your on-page optimization and content has been sorted by this guy, and not go into too much detail about what you should be doing. He looks like he's an expert, so we'll leave him to it. However, there's one bugbear that we see a lot when we first start working with a client. Even when the on-page optimization is good, and that is the meta title and description. Often marketers focus a lot on the on-page content that they forget about the meta description. However, it makes a really big difference to your click-through rate because it tells the user what they're going to find on the page, and it also tells Google. As you can see here from the example, 32Red is missing a trick with their very basic meta title and description. If you type in football betting into Google, most of the operators in the search results have much more sophisticated meta titles and descriptions. And as it's such a competitive niche, operators are fighting to stand out, and 32Red isn't helping themselves. But if you take a look at these two listings, I think it's probably quite clear which one you'd click on. Paddy Power is a great example of best practice here. They have a clear call to action, an upcoming event section, and tick icons to make the description easier to read. And if you compare it to the 32Red one, they're taking up a lot more space on the page, so the person searching is automatically drawn to this result. So looking at your meta title and description is often a really quick fix that can make a massive difference to your rankings and click-through rate. So we'd recommend having a look at this if you haven't done so recently. But as I said, we're not going to focus too much on the on-page stuff today. The one thing, once all of your on-page optimization is sorted, that's going to get you to the first position on Google is the links. Here at Receptional, we categorize links in 4 ways based on their domain rating. So firstly, we've got the lower tier links. It's worth noting these as they may be providing some value to your site, but we don't tend to build links below DR20. Standard tier links are ones of good value that will make an impact to your SEO rankings. Premium tier links are ones of high quality, but they're slightly harder to get. And the super tier links are rarer and usually require a sophisticated PR-led approach. To provide a bit of context to this, the domain rating is based on the quality of the links going to the website. So for example, the BBC will be a super tier domain, as you'd expect, because they have so many links going to the website every day. Whereas if I was to build a blog today, it would be a DR0 because I'd have no links and no authority. So not only will the higher tier links provide more search visibility, they will also have a bigger, more relevant audience. So it will also increase your brand awareness if these sites are talking about your brand, which goes back to Justin and Jack's point about being memorable. If you're present in the market as a whole, your customers are more likely to remember us. In order to evaluate the types of links you need to build to be ranking #1, it's important to look at what your competitors are doing. So if we take a look at the keyword football betting, for example, and look at the operator ranking in first position, which is Betfair, we can see that to rank ahead of them, you need to build around 360 standard links, 120 premium links, and 50 super links to your relevant football betting page. So in total, around 530. Or we often find that if you build more super and premium tier links, you don't need to build quite as many standard links, as the quality usually outweighs the quantity. But as you'd expect, football betting is a really competitive keyword that everyone would want to rank first for. If you take the keyword slots, for example, you'd need to build around 200 links to be in the top spot. So unless you had a lot of backlinks already and were ranking in the top 5 for the football betting keyword, which suggests probably looking at a less competitive keyword in order to achieve a quicker win. But let's look a little deeper at the top tier links and how we acquire them. As I said, these links are harder to get, so we have to take a different approach to both outreach and content than we would with standard links. At Receptional, our biggest focus is on creating high quality content, as this means we can target the higher quality sites. So we created a model for creating timely, newsworthy content called dynamic deadlines, which we use for specific events such as sporting events like Cheltenham and obviously the Euros at the moment. With dynamic deadlines, we plan well in advance for a key event and then write, sub-edit and place the content on the day of the event in a similar way to how a newspaper or online sports website would operate. Kind of a different way to look at newsjacking, because instead of jumping on a news story that's being covered by all of the publications, we're creating the news story at the time that it is really relevant. So this gives us a lot more leverage with our outreach, as we are adding value to the journalist or website with more timely content, meaning it is much more likely to be picked up by the top tier sites. We also use creative content to gain the premium and super placements rather than just the editorial, like infographics and quizzes. For example, last year we ran a campaign around Friday the 13th for Cheltenham, as the Gold Cup day was taking place on Friday the 13th. It turned out to be quite unlucky for the favourites. We used this day as a dynamic deadline and had the content placed on Friday the 13th, as it was much more timely and relevant that day. But also we turned the content into an infographic, which gave us much more pickup on higher quality sites, as we were offering more content than just, the editorial, and it's much more interesting to the reader. This campaign was really successful. God, I can't say successful today for our client, as they're ranking #1 operator during the festival. And at the moment, we're currently planning in future events for our dynamic deadlines, particularly with the Premier League season coming up and obviously the World Cup at the end of that season. It's an exciting time for operators to be competing for the top spots. So if you have any questions on how you can get there, please do get in touch. As Jack said, we can answer questions today or later on. So yeah, that brings me to the end, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining us today, and yeah, we'll open up the floor to any questions you might have.
Excellent, thank you very much, Claire. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, as Claire said, if you've got any questions, then please do drop them into the questions box on the right-hand side. I think we'd had one earlier on, Jack, which was during your session, and the question was around kind of, could you talk us through how how you did the research? So,
yeah, sure. Yeah, it was a lengthy process.
How did you collect the data? What was the approach?
Yeah, sure. So we as an agency have a pool of keywords from previous research that we've done. That's huge. So I did tap into that to begin with and got kind of an initial set of keywords that we could use to begin with. I then put them into Google's keyword planner, just to make sure that I was getting the most up-to-date search volumes. And then also what that does is helps me to see if there's any keywords that I've missed. So that actually helped me populate the list of keywords that we had. What I then did was reached out to a few companies to make sure that we had the top 30 ranking websites for each keyword. So it gave us a vast amount of data to be able to work with. All of that data then went into a giant spreadsheet, which had pages and pages and pages of formulas and words and numbers that basically meant that we could work out the estimated traffic and the market share for every single site. And then this was all collated down and put together and then put into the presentation like we've shown today.
Excellent, Jack. Thank you very much. And other particular tools, or is it kind of largely kind of a manual process?
Yeah, it was quite a manual process. We used SEMrush for the top 30 ranking websites, just because it's so much quicker for them to be able to find that compared to us kind of searching through. But apart from that, mostly Excel and and Google Keyword Planner, which we use to find the search volumes and any missing keywords.
Excellent, thank you very much, Jack. So Thank you for the questions coming in here. There's a question for you, Claire,
Mm-hmm.
which is around when creating backlinks, what type of anchor text would you suggest to use? Do you use the exact keyword you want to rank for, or some more general anchor text?
We'd usually suggest doing a bit of a mixture. So Google suggests doing a large amount of branded anchor text, just to make sure that your backlink profile is looking natural. And then obviously we want to have some exact match, but having a bit of a mixture makes it a lot more natural to Google. So it means that you're more likely to rank higher. So some exact match, some longer tail terms, and just mixing up what you're kind of trying to target.
Cool, thank you very much, Claire. So I hope that's useful. I can't see any other questions coming in at the moment, so we shall leave it there. So thank you very much for coming today. As I say, we're going to send around a poll within the next 24 hours, and we're grateful if you could just fill that out and let us know what you thought, because we always want to be improving and making sure that we're presenting information that's useful. But thank you very much for coming, and lovely to see you all, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.